Welcome to Biztech C-Suite Conversations Show. Today we speak to Andrew Nicholls, the Managing Director and Co-founder of CARMA Asia. CARMA Asia, which is headquartered in Singapore and part of CARMA International, is the world's most globally diverse media intelligence agency with a presence in over 40 countries and across 5 continents. Now, Andrew, tell us more about CARMA Asia and its history. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Good to be here. Sure. So CARMA is a global provider of technology and research services. And that enables organizations to monitor, measure, and evaluate communications, understand the media landscape and public opinion. So our clients, they come from all industries. We work with quite a wide range of multinational companies, but also governments and NGOs. But within all of those organizations, we're primarily working with the PR and communications professionals and the leadership of those organizations. So we help them track key issues, evaluate their communications, identify reputational risks, and so on. CARMA, the brand itself, is nearly 40 years old, and the name is actually an abbreviation that stands for Computer Aided Research and Media Analysis. So that gives you a sense of what the strategy is predicated on. It's about marrying smart technology and smart people in order to deliver those services.
What's your footprint look like in the Asia Pacific region, and how long have you been here?
So we launched the CARMA Asia business about 4 years ago. We have 3 primary customer-facing offices, which are in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. We also have offices in Thailand and the Philippines. But we work with organizations throughout the region. We have clients in China, we have clients in Indonesia as well.
Now, could you give us a snapshot of what your product and solution suite looked like, and then how you basically help companies and brands?
Sure. So first of all, the media is an incredibly rich source of information. One of the challenges is getting to it, right? So media intelligence is about gathering data from websites, from newspapers, social media listening, TV and radio broadcast channels, and then distilling insight from it. So that can be things like what themes are contributing most to your corporate reputation? How do perceptions of trust vary across your competitors or within your business lines? Which influencers are driving the most customer action for your organization? So that's really done through a combination of technology. We use web crawlers, and we have a portal that synthesizes data from online sources through social media APIs. We do deals with publishers here in Singapore. We have a relationship with SPH, where they send us their newspaper print-ready files in the morning. So we're really engaged in this massive data gathering effort across the world. And then we are sifting through that information using AI technology to extract the relevant and important information for our customers. And that's really a technology solution. Many of our clients are working with us on that basis alone, and then they have teams within their organizations that are then taking that data and interpreting it and making decisions based off the back of it. But we also have a team of consultants. We really pride ourselves on hiring the most experienced consultants in the industry, and we also nurture talent within our organization to really be the best in terms of offering consultancy around measurement and evaluation of comms, about asking, what does this data actually mean? How does it impact our organization? We had a client just recently for whom we were monitoring, amongst other things, statements made by CEOs in their rival companies. And one of the things our analysts noticed that one of those CEOs had stopped talking about a certain area of their organization. And so that informed our client that possibly that organization was going to stop or pull back investment in that particular area. So these are the type of insights that you can get from working with an organization like CARMA.
Andrew, that's a very interesting little nugget that you shared with us. The fact that your analyst was able to pull out that information, was that done because of the analyst's experience, and was that an AI-driven, technology plus people-driven decision-making process?
So the answer is you need both. Okay, so there's been a broad trend over the last few years, which has accelerated through COVID, towards digitization and data-driven decision making, and that's across all our areas of organizations. You know, we see finance teams using Xero, sales and marketing teams using HubSpot, for example. Even if you're in logistics, there are a whole range of technology solutions out there for you, and it's the same in the PR and communications industry. Now, we invest heavily in our technology, and I am personally extremely excited about what artificial intelligence can do, particularly with things like natural language processing and understanding sentiment. And that's an area that we invest in at CARMA, and that does help surface some of those important nuggets of information. But the reality is that you cannot rely on technology in isolation. You need both. Technology is really doing the heavy lifting. It's helping you get to the important information a bit quicker than you would otherwise do. You know, we're tracking data from newspapers in South America, from social media in China, broadcast content in Africa, and we're delivering all of that in a centralized solution to our clients. We physically wouldn't be able to do that without having smart technology. But data-driven decision-making is about technology helping you make a smarter judgment about something that you're going to do. It's not about the technology making that judgment for you. And there's still quite a lot of work to do, even after you've gathered the data and extracted the relevant stuff. It's quite a lot of work to do to then bring in that kind of critical thinking, contextual understanding, social, political understanding, and indeed, as you mentioned, you know, you need a bit of industry understanding. So we have consultants that really understand the oil and gas industry, and that allows us to have a relationship with Saudi Aramco as one of our global clients. We have consultants that really understand the banking and finance industry, and that helps us work with HSBC and with UOB here in Singapore. So yes, it is about having smart people that understand what's going to be relevant to the client and understanding how to present that data, but it's also combining that with investment in technology.
And Andrew, you emphasize technology a lot, and obviously media intelligence has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, because, you know, if you think back to old school PR and monitoring, it was basically press coverage and monitorings, literally PR consultants flipping through newspapers and then coming up with monitoring reports. How much of the technology that you have is actually self-service technology, and how much is actually delivered by you as consulting services?
Well, I think the market, let's take the market in Asia, for example. In my view, 80% of this market is looking for a software as a service type solution. Okay, so ordinarily when we go and see clients in this region, a lot of them, their expectation is they're going to get a technology solution. I'd say about 10% of the market is already getting some form of consultancy solution. So they have crossed over that bridge from purely wanting a technology solution to understanding the enhanced level of insight they get if they have a measurement evaluation professional actually overlooking that data and producing reports and consulting with them. And then the other 10%, I would say, is in the process of switching. They are ready and open to that idea, but are maybe just starting out on that journey. And there are companies out there that provide purely technology solutions, and that's really all they're interested in doing, and they're focusing on servicing that 80% of the market. And there are also companies that deal with more of a research-based solution. And I think, you know, as I've said, CARMA really is about trying to do both of those things. And as a 37-year-old brand, you know, I think it's been in our DNA from the outset, because as I said, the name itself stands for computer-aided research and media analysis. So we've always been combining those two things right from the outset of our business.
So from the onset, you were data first and technology first.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, Andrew, in terms of a comparison, because I looked at your background and you worked both in the UK as well as in Asia. In terms of maturity of the market from a media intelligence perspective, where is the Asia Pacific right now compared to more mature markets? And which are the bright spots? I mean, you look at Singapore, you probably mirror any of the developed markets, but what does the rest of the region look like from a media intelligence perspective?
Sure. Well, media intelligence is a growing industry worldwide. Even in the US, it's still growing pretty quickly throughout COVID, and compared to other industries, media intelligence is continuing to grow at a pretty rapid pace. But in Asia, it's the fastest growing region. And you're right to suggest that there are markets that are maybe working at different speeds. Singapore, I think, it has more of a broad understanding and acceptance of the benefits of working with a media intelligence partner. But that doesn't mean to say that they understand it in the same way or to the same depth as some of the clients that we work with in Europe, for example. I think in Europe, the media monitoring part of the service we provide is seen as being table stakes. Of course, you've got to get the data in order to then do the evaluation and get the insight. In this region, I think people are primarily interested in getting hold of the data. So if we're working with PR people, the basic challenge they have is, I don't want to miss a clip. I want to make sure that if my brand or one of my competitors is mentioned in the media, that piece of information is available within the CARMA portal or within my daily report, so that I can show that we're having an impact as a PR team, that we understand what our competitor PR teams are up to. So that's probably most of that 80% of the market that I was talking about earlier on in Asia. But there are lots of organizations and an increasing number of organizations that are looking at this from a more strategic perspective. I mean, just if you look at the sheer number of unicorns now that are being created in this part of the world, if you look at organizations like Grab, who have gone public through a SPAC, if you look at Gojek, who's looking to do a similar thing, I think this year, companies like Carousel, these big, fast-growing technology-driven companies from Asia that are expanding not just regionally but globally, are going to have to start to compete from an insight perspective in the same way as some of the clients we work with in Europe and the US. So I think there's that smaller part of the market is growing fast, but technology will always underpin everything.
But Andrew, from what you just said, there's a huge opportunity then in Asia for you, because the traditional large conglomerate that needs to get its messaging out and needs to get its messaging out differently and needs to measure its messaging and marketing better needs to come and use solutions like you, because they're slightly behind the curve, perhaps a little bit slower in terms of adoption, but there are conglomerates across the region that perhaps need to do a lot more. And that's your opportunity.
Yeah, and also there are plenty of organizations that originated in the West that are desperate to expand in this region as well, right? Because Asia, as we all know, is the kind of economic growth engine of the world for the foreseeable future. We just published a report at the end of last year comparing and contrasting American tech companies with Asian tech companies in terms of how they are portrayed and positioned in the media in Southeast Asia. And if anyone's interested, you can download that report along with others that we produce for public consumption on our website. And what was interesting about that was there are clearly there are some clear differences in terms of how is writing Chinese tech brands, Japanese tech brands, Korean tech brands versus American tech brands. And understanding if you are from one side or the other, what that means in terms of your communications plan and what you might want to consider focusing on as far as your reputation is concerned is pretty insightful stuff.
Could you share some insights, some of those insights? That sounds fascinating.
Well, one of the ones that springs to mind immediately was a lot of organizations have placed more focus on employee engagement, particularly throughout the pandemic. And I think the US companies in particular had been publicizing a lot of their activities around that. And some of that had made it into the media. But when you compared it with some of the Asian tech brands, particularly the Chinese tech brands, there was quite a big difference between what you would have perceived from consuming that media, but what it would be like to work for a Chinese tech company versus what it might be like to work for an American tech company. So that then has implications on hiring talent, right?
Yes.
Southeast Asia is a key battleground for tech companies, and not just for eyeballs, but also for talent.
Now, you've just announced a partnership with the Public Relations and Communications Association and the ICCO as well, the International Communications Consultancy Organization, and that's a global deal. Could you tell us a little bit more about this and what impact it will have?
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect partnership, right? As I mentioned, most of our clients are PR or comms leaders, and those two organizations, PRCA and ECO, they're trade bodies for the PR industry. So, what they want to do is they want to make sure they're giving their members content which is going to help them learn and develop and do their jobs better. Working with CARMA means that they have better access to some of our experts. We host webinars together. In fact, we're hosting one next week on trends to look out for in 2022. So we lend some of our experts. Our head of insights for Asia is leading that one from CARMA's perspective, to provide valuable content to their members. And for us, of course, it's an opportunity to get in front of the world's PR industry, which is our key client segment. So it's a great partnership for those reasons. Now,
speaking of trends, give us some insights into what this year's trends and predictions in the media monitoring and intelligence industry are.
Sure. Well, I think, the two or three that spring to mind. Firstly, organizations are almost falling over themselves to burnish their ESG credentials and to show how caring they are about their employees. And that's something that we've seen starting from the pandemic, but I think there's a general awareness now that consumers as a whole are more interested in how organizations behave, how they impact the planet, how they treat their employees, and so on and so forth. So, that's something that more of our clients are now asking us to measure, to report on, to help them understand how their reputational credentials in that area are. And so I think that's an area within media intelligence that we're going to spend more time focusing on. And it's an area that, coming back to some of the earlier points we discussed, technology alone, I don't think is going to be able to provide that. So that's where we're going to have a lot of our consultancy time focused on, I think. From a media and media monitoring perspective, I mean, the trend is obviously greater digitization. 60% of Southeast Asia's population is now online, which is mirroring a global trend. 60% of the global population is now online. And it seems like every few months there's a new platform that we have to be paying attention to. There are now just so many more places that brands can be tested, right? That reputations can be put at risk. And clearly, one of the consequences of the digital revolution is that consumers as a whole have much greater opportunity to hold companies and governments to account in a public forum. So bad actors are now just far more likely to have their transgressions published and openly debated. But of course, as we've seen, a story doesn't necessarily need to be true to gain traction. To paraphrase a famous adage, fake news gets halfway around the world before the truth has put its boots on. So those kind of dynamics have been in existence already, but it's a trend that we're seeing more and more of. And globally, the communications is becoming a global landscape. A story that starts in Singapore can quickly become a global story thanks to the ubiquity of the internet and the sheer number of us that are now connected to it. So I think from a media intelligence perspective, we need to make sure that we're continuing to build technology that, first of all, is able to capture all of this information. Secondly, surface the relevant information. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, that we continue to consult with our clients as we are now in order for them to make the best decisions as a result of that data.
Andrew, it's been a fascinating conversation. I actually learned a lot. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Stay safe, I think, is probably the first thing that comes to mind. And let's all hope that we can get back to what's truly normal as soon as possible. I'm looking forward to visiting our clients and our teams around the region as soon as possible.
Andrew, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Andrew Nicholls, the Managing Director and Co-founder of CARMA Asia, on Biztech C-Suite Conversations Show. This video and podcast will be on our various platforms as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.